All right, well, thank you for joining us today on the DORA Compliance Challenges webinar. I just want to take a moment here and say happy anniversary to DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act. DORA came into effect on the 17th of January, 2025, and we're a little more than 1 year in, so happy anniversary to DORA. It's a complicated one. DORA affects all financial institutions with a presence in any EU country, and potentially their third parties as well. It's got 64 articles in the main document and further numerous regulatory technical standards. And it's, 1 year in, it's time to reflect and review on the challenges that it's presented across numerous dimensions. So with that, my name is Neil Hooper. I lead global revenue for Panaseer. We're a SaaS solution company in cybersecurity. And I'm joined today by Andreas Wuchner. Now, Andreas is an internationally recognized cybersecurity risk and compliance expert. He's been a CISO of global financial organizations. He's an investor. He's on a number of boards, and he's an advisor. And Andreas, you and I have known each other for a number of years, and you happen to be a trusted advisor here at Panaseer. It's always an honor to spend time together.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a really honor, and it's a good topic, right? I'm really looking forward to our conversation about DORA.
Yeah, that's right. It's I'm sure you would agree. It's affected everybody, right?
So. Yeah, no, that's for sure true.
Super. Well, let's set the agenda, if you will. DORA is it's a regulatory standard, so it's a compliance exercise, but it's much more than that, and it requires some process redesign and frequently new ways of thinking. There are the topics I'd like to discuss today with you, Andreas. There's something called a critical important function, CIF. So we'll talk about that CIF complexity, how to identify these critical functions. That will lead us to, I'm sure, exposing a number of technical challenges, and moving beyond just creating a compliance report, but what is required behind the scenes technically to support these things. And then we'll wrap with, okay, now that we understand DORA, CIF, and the technical challenges that we're all seeing, how does that translate to day-to-day operations, and what does it mean for board of directors alignment? Does that sound pretty good, Andreas?
Sounds like a plan, yeah, definitely.
Super. So let's start with, part of the foundation of DORA, if you will, the CIF. And the identification of a critical important function. So let's just make it specific. Let's put it in terms of being a large European bank. You've got cloud systems, you've got legacy systems, you've got numerous third-party integrations. How would you start, Andreas? How would you begin to approach the question, what actually constitutes a critical important function for us?
Good question. Yeah, the thing is, if you look at DORA from whatever 10,000 meters away, then you see a lot of controls which are there, which are common sense, right? It's not that DORA is a completely new, never seen, whatever complicated thing. It's a set of controls, but with very specific requirements. And I think you start quite on the right place. What is a critically important function, right? And while a lot of people, when it comes to technology and this kind of control, try to start bottom up, critically important function, so-called CIF, has the intention to say, no, it's about the business. It's about top down. And it really says, okay, take a look at every business function and check when it's disrupted, would that materially impact the financial stability, customer trust, regulatory obligations of the firm, right? That's really what this is all about. And it forces you also to say to focus on the operation and key markets, so the availability component. And so therefore, if you talk about the bank, you talk about payments, trading, treasury, maybe core banking, but also things like customer onboarding, critical reporting processes, right? These are critical functions, and they have nothing to do with technology to start with, right? It's a pure business thing. It's a pure so-called, we in the IT world love to talk about service level agreements, right? SLA focus.
Yeah.
That's where you have SLAs. These are the functions you really want to have an eye on, and not talking about technologies beneath, because that's not the whole idea here.
That's what I love about DORA is really what you were just describing. This is not just a pain. Oh my goodness, I need to do some compliance reports. This is about the act is all, as you mentioned, is all about resilience, and it's about looking at your business from a business perspective and what is required behind the scenes to support that. So when we talk about a CIF, there are service functions, there are assets, and there are controls, and I'm sure there are other things as well, applications. There are a number of layers. You might actually have numerous teams managing the controls that ultimately support one CIF. So that's a new way of thinking. It's a little more complex than other ways of thinking. How do you begin to approach that?
First of all, if you talk with security people, risk people, they often argue or moan that they are not connected to the business, right? They don't understand it really. DORA is the perfect door opener for security people to get connected to the business. The reason for that is very simple. If you talk about CIFs, then you really need to say, okay, it's which business function, it's not IT who does it, it's the business. And if you do this whole exercise right, then you not only have a control owner, you have also a business owner, in best case, even a process owner, right? And you can have a multitude of owners for controls which are mapped to a critically process here. And this is a huge opportunity. And DORA with that forces you really to come from a top-down approach, right? Because you need to sit together with the business people and say, okay, what happens if this goes down? What happens if this is not available? Okay, what could bring it down, right? And that kind of stuff. So it educates the business on one side, best case, right? It also gives you as a security or IT person, someone to talk to and own something. It brings challenges, that's definitely clear, right? Because if you need something from a business person, which is IT related, you need to educate, you need to explain. So it is a challenge, but it is a good challenge. It's a huge opportunity for really focusing on what the role of a CISO and a security function is all about. Top down, partnering with the business, helping them to be agile, available, make money, and all that stuff. And that's the perfect opportunity which DORA brings to security, where it has brought to security people. And a lot of them have really used it, right? A lot of people which are in there now for a year and happy and successful said, look, it brought me so much closer to the business. And that's the best thing you can get as a security person.
What a great outcome. How about that? Regulation comes in and people are happy about it.
That's maybe a little bit too much, right? Because there is a lot of work to be done and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's always good to have a reason, right? To talk with someone. If you're single and you walk the park with a dog, it's much easier to get into contact with other dog owners than you walk alone, right? And that's the same thing here. It is an opportunity to get in contact, to talk about business, to become a partner, and to develop trust.
I love that. Well, you're hinting at some numerous topics there, but there are technical challenges about what you've just described and organizational challenges that you've described. But before we get to those meaty topics, just on you talked about various control owners, but introducing the concept of a business owner and taking a top-down approach, which I love. At a complexity level, in order to get that business view, you have to collect a bunch of information from distributed teams. And I use the word information. It's not just a bunch of data. It's a bunch of information because at the end of the day, this is a regulatory act. So you need to produce evidence. So there's a lot in there, Andreas. I mean, before we get to the technical challenges around that and the organizational challenges, is there a philosophy about hitting the practicalities of the fact that the control owners are in different teams? They have different managers, and I need to be able to collect information, and it needs to be evidenced with the intention of building reports.
It's complex, right? The major learning for me was, again and again, there is no single source of truth. Not for technology controls, not for ownerships, not for interest. What is a CIF for one person may not be a CIF for another one, right? And for example, if you talk in the healthcare industry, there's, we can still do this with paper. And you would, what? How could you do that? And they can sometimes. Most of the time, not at all, right? A bank cannot operate without IT. So things like that's a door opener and is thought-provoking stuff. Okay, there is resiliency. Some people still are capable of using a pen and paper and get work done, right? If you have a fully automated warehouse, good luck with finding anything, right? Especially if you have millions of items in there. So these kind of dependencies become very clear. You have normally several CMDBs, so change management databases, because they're used for different purposes. You have application portfolios, which most of the time some IT people have never heard about because hidden IT, some of the shadow IT, or in the cloud environment, all of that, if this goes, right? That creates transparency. Vendor lists, right? TPRM, third-party vendor risk. Oh my God, that's suddenly, if you go through it, then okay, it becomes wild. Let's call it like this, right? And so you easily end up with, if you look, for example, in our world, in a payment process, that you have somewhere between 6 and 10 layers deep dependencies, right? And especially hidden dependencies. And that's the big learning from DORA, from my point of view, right? It created such a transparency. Again, it sounds too nice the way I'm saying it now, because it's painful, right? It is nothing you really need. You say, I'm done. Oh, no, I'm not done. Oh, there's another vendor. Oh, there is another thing. It's just this present which keeps giving, right? And so therefore, it is good, but it's work, it's complex. And again, there is no single source of truth. You need to bring this together. You need to be patient when you start top down and you say, okay, what is it really? And if you try to heal the world and do everything at once, you fail, guaranteed, right? If you did one by one, and then over time you see, okay, these whatever firewall services or this data warehouse provider, and it comes up again and again and again. Oh my God, that's a critical one. So you check with the TPRM guys, do we mark this service provider also as a critical one? Oh, we haven't. Okay, because TPM didn't know it, right? That's the kind of transparency you generate with that, which brings a lot of value.
Well, you nailed it there. That's the business has to run the business. There are people living in their areas of responsibility and expertise, but the CISO owns the risk, and the CISO, has a desire to have that single source of truth. So, in DORA, with this concept of business owners that you described, I mean, there's this concept of, could we achieve a centralized platform to start to collect these things automatically and continuously to support these functions? Obviously that's a trend we see across cybersecurity. The pain that you just described is very common. So let's talk about that, because if we could create this concept of a platform to house this information in the way that you've just described, really what we would be talking about there is continuous monitoring of controls data from a heterogeneous environment into a living environment. So, if we were to explore that direction, it comes with a number of technical challenges. And in fact, you were beginning to hint at a number of those technical challenges. Um, let's just talk about the fact that let's start at the beginning. Maybe some systems are manual, some systems are on premise, and some systems are in the cloud. Do you think that that's an insurmountable wall to get over, and you should throw your hands in the air and say, "Oh my goodness, this is too complicated. I need to give up"? Or, what's your advice
Mm. Let
when hit
me
with that type of blocker?
let me challenge you first on one thing. You
Yeah,
said the CISO owns the risk.
yeah,
I'm not agreeing with that. And for the
okay,
simple reason is that if we say the controls are owned by the business, by security, by IT, maybe even some process people, then there is also distribution and ownership on the risk side, right?
yeah,
For the security services, definitely the CISO owns the risk. But if an payment process is not available because of a service provider going down, that's the business who owns that risk, right? And
yeah,
uh, the the CISO and all the supporting function will be in the storm as well, but it's not. It's a shared ownership, and it really depends where you go. And again, it sounds too easy and too nice, but this is also a big advantage which you get through DORA, right? Because you can all of a sudden make it clear that this is not a technology problem. There are things which you need to look at and which the service provider or the business owner needs to do the job on. So if we talk about continuous monitoring, as you said, one platform, one single source of truth. Is this doable? Yes, it is. Is it a quick win? No, it isn't. And the cherry on the cake here is the timing, right? DORA wants you to do everything in near real time, right?
yeah,
This is a very, very big challenge, right? Everyone has legacy systems. From legacy systems, you don't get the data really you need, or legacy systems are fenced off for security reasons, unpatchable, especially again in the healthcare industry, or your mainframe, all these things. So therefore, you need to be extremely creative in, okay, where do I get the data from? How do I get the data? What's the standard? So, do I have a standard format? What are the easy ones, right? I guess, if you have whatever, take Microsoft Active Directory to get monitoring or the logs from an AD, it's simple. If you get, I have it now in the cloud, I have a cloud, that's also simple. But if you have a 20-year-old PKI system which still watches over some signatures from FDA approvals from 20 years ago, good luck with that, right? Maybe there are logs, maybe not, but maybe they have formats which you have never seen and things like that. So there are different levels of complexity here. So it is doable. It takes time because it's not a one-stop shop easy thing, right? But if you start with the major services and with the newer ones, the cloud stuff, this is pretty simple. The more you go backwards towards legacy, the more you go towards not standard application, homegrown, self-developed, mobile apps, whatever it may be, that's where it becomes tricky. But no one should come with an excuse and say, oh, it's impossible. It is
yeah.
possible. It is doable.
Love it. So it's there's no magic antidote here to have a single source of truth and reporting system for things like DORA. It would involve a technical investment to do the types of things you're describing, and I love your pushback there, because I happen to agree that as you go on your journey towards cybersecurity maturity, and embrace the concepts of things like DORA, you can the CISO can provide visibility to the business and collaboration and a shared risk model. That is the ultimate destination. And I think it's kind of how you opened, Andreas.
Yeah.
It's DORA is intended to be a business lens, not just a technical or compliance lens.
Yeah.
And it, when done properly with a technical investment here, we can achieve those goals together across the business. So I love it. I love it. That makes a ton of sense. So there are technical aspects of what we just described. I'm glad you talked about timing, because that introduces another technical aspect here, I suppose. There was a migration in our observation in the world, going from annual reporting of your cybersecurity posture and resiliency posture to quarterly. I don't think anyone does annual anymore, to quarterly, because that's the cadence that senior executives sit on. But then it's boiling down to monthly. If you're going to properly achieve quarterly reporting, you really should do monthly as team members, which then needs to be supported by much finer increments of continuous assessment and continuous reporting. And it really gets down to, in our opinion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it really gets down to daily monitoring.
Agree. No, I totally agree. The goal must be even near real time, right?
Near real time.
That's the ultimate goal of everyone who does security monitoring or control effectiveness monitoring. It's just not doable for some systems, right? Again, the cloud providers, doesn't matter if you're a Microsoft job, an AWS job, they all offer these tools. They all have these capabilities. If you talk with the security and compliance people there, they say, oh, most of the customers are not using them because they don't know what to do and how to really work with the data. The data is there. The more you understand your own shop, the more you understand which data is really necessary, right? Just take you can take two areas. Take identity and access management, right? Since how many years are we investing millions and millions in identity and access management? And this is a project which never ends and which never goes away. And the same is patch management, as a vulnerability management, patch management, right? So therefore, actual systems, do we get it? Do we scan them? Do we know them? Is this authenticated scan? Is discovery, whatever, right? All this, that's simple. The fenced off, the stuff which you don't own, the service providers, all that stuff, that's the tricky one. And that's where the timing becomes an issue, right? Microsoft or Google or Amazon will not allow you to put the monitor into their data centers and just look if the systems are up and patched and all that stuff. They say, oh, hey, we follow our guidelines. We are SOC 2 compliant. We do this, and this, and this. And you rather believe us, because otherwise you're doomed, right? That's where it becomes tricky with real time. But the ultimate goal must be to have and I'm always saying near real time, because you always need processing time. You always need so I think you with your daily, you are pretty close to what most really is achievable. But if you make it too simple, if you say daily, that's try it, and weekly. So that's why I say near real time. It is doable. It is complex, but it is doable. You need to understand where you are, and you really need to understand what is important, right? What is in scope. One thing which I learned over the years, that most of the organizations are locking far too many things, not necessary things, but here is something, it's a lock capability, let's lock it, right? And companies in the log management space have made a fortune in the past, because everyone, that grows and grows exponentially, and then they have data retention policies. You need to keep it for 3 years. Good luck, right? So therefore, this is a journey, and we are not there yet, or many organizations are not there yet. And as you said, it's a technology investment, even if it's a business project. And this is investment into getting better and getting more transparent. And that gives us resiliency, right? Only if we know where things can go wrong and what happens if they can go wrong, then we can, how can we stop bleeding? How can we interact with people? How can we, who do we need to call? That's what resiliencies then bring. That's what DORA is all about at the end.
Well, it continues to feel broad and deep simultaneously. You talked about various components that contribute to to that. The good news is your advice is focus on the way DORA describes it. It's critical, important functions. It's not every single function in your business. It's the critical ones.
Yeah.
So that's obviously very helpful. But those CIFs do include things like patch and vulnerability and endpoint and cloud misconfigurations. And in the identity space, we're seeing a lot of challenges around privileged access management, bypassing vaults, and all kinds of things. And it leads me, so all of these things technically absolutely can be addressed. We do it every day here at Panaseer, for instance, through a centralized platform. So it can be addressed, but let's talk about maybe legacy approaches to what we've described. And I've seen this numerous times. If we agree that taking a business approach to monitoring CIFs is supported by numerous different control owners in a distributed environment, then what you could do is you could collect reports from each one of those individuals and produce a 200-page board report to say, here it is, here's all my data. That I'm not exaggerating. I have seen that. I'm sure you have as well.
Me too.
Just some. What do you what's your reaction to that?
You only do this once. The board will not. A decent board will not accept that, right?
Right.
In all fairness, there are techie companies with techie boards, and they love this. But that's a very, very clear minority, right? Most of the board people look for stable key indicators. They don't want to know what the nitty-gritty details are. They want to have clear, stable indicators, covering all the CIFs, showing what the resiliency posture really is, what maybe the key control coverage really is. And they want to know, in addition, major incidents and lessons learned, right? This is the thing. Besides what you do as on a status, you need to have these two indicators. Did something go wrong? Yes, no. And if yes, what did we learn from this? Where do we need to get better? Is it us? Is it someone else? Were dependencies? Maybe a control was bad, or maybe just such a simple thing like a threshold was wrong or too low, or the owners didn't care, and that kind of stuff, right? The learning, because that's one of the things which DORA wants. DORA says, okay, you need to have someone on the board who understands what the guys are talking about. Cool. Keep it simple, keep it stable, create transparency, and make sure that people think you are in control. It's all about ownership, right? You want to have a CISO or the head of security or whoever presents this DORA stuff, who owns the stuff, and say, look here, by the way, we messed up here. We learned this one. We've replaced a tool. We replaced a system. We replaced a vendor. We replaced people, whatever it was. But that's what shows leadership. That what shows action, and not just endless talking and details. No one cares. The detail, don't get me wrong, right? The details are important, but not for a board member.
Yeah, the details are there are different meetings leading into a board meeting, and risk committees and things like that. But that's an important point that you bring up, which is someone on the board needs to be conversant in DORA. How technical what's your recommendation on the communication with that individual as well as the board in general? How technical do you think it should be?
Every new leader being responsible, before you go to the board, you talk with either one board member or with the assistant of the board who runs the board, or the minutes of the board, what the level is, right? You need to know the depth of the board. And again, a board takes risk decisions every single day, right? And in some companies, like again, life science, where people die if they do something wrong, in banks where people lose a lot of money if something goes wrong, all that stuff, right? That's their butter and bread business. Security is not their business, right? The person who is there with the ownership and the oversight this, he or she will definitely understand more, and it's good to debrief with this person clearly before you go to the board presentation, right? And so that you learn the flight level. And again, if you're on a tech board where everyone is a techie and an engineer by heart, that's a very different reporting than in a bank or in a SMB or whatsoever, right? And that's the kind of hygiene thing you have to do, whatever, right? If you're a new CFO, if you're a new COO, you don't go in there just, hey, I'm the rock star, and you normally test the water before, get a feeling for it, and then, okay, look, that's the way we talk. That's the composition, who owns what, and you don't want to be unprepared for your first board meeting.
This is why you're such an excellent advisor, Andreas. You've got both the practical background and having walked in those shoes, as well as seeing numerous other other organizations. So that's great. Those are great insights. So I get it. I'll throw a but in there. But we're 1 year in. It's been my experience, and I'm sure it's been yours, that after 1 year in, the level of scrutiny tends to increase. There's the launch year, but I mean, DORA's not going away. The level of scrutiny around DORA will increase. It's been our observation that the regulatory bodies themselves become more educated about such things, so they begin to dig deeper. And what we see sometimes is that there is a skills gap. You take your traditional large financial services organization that's is doing all these control ownership activities, et cetera. I mean, it's not like they're not doing them already, but what they haven't done in the past is DORA. And are we beginning to see any skills gaps?
Yeah, definitely. But this, I don't know if you can say we see them, they are there, right? And they haven't become better.
Yeah.
And you know that I started as well from a technology point of view before I did my business side thing. If you grew up in IT, you learn to measure and to manage in key performance indicators, right? And so that is availability. This is that language you're using. And all of a sudden, you are forced to talk in risk and control language. And your KPI is supposed to become a KRI, a key risk indicator.
Yeah.
And all the dependencies is no longer 99.995% availability, which matters, right? It's what happens if and all that. And that's difficult. And I think it's fair to say, if you look through the CISO landscape, you see more and more CISOs now which have a business and risk background and not a technology background. And again, don't get me wrong, if you are working whatever for a crypto startup in the hot, super fast developing environment who gets hacked every other minute, you want a technical savvy security person, right? No question about it.
Yeah.
In a bigger organization, you have people in the different hierarchies and different organizations who have this knowledge. So there, the situation is different. There is definitely a skill gap. There's definitely still a learning curve, which we have to go through, and where the universities work on, where also the programs like ICC Square and all these things are talking about control. What is a control? What is a control threshold? What is control coverage? What is control hygiene? All that stuff, right? That's not standard tech language. And if you study IT in a university today, that's still today, you don't learn that one. You learn about performance, you learn about stacks and all that stuff. Right? There is still there are still two different silos, and they will grow together. And you see, AI now helps, right? AI kicks a little asses there and say, hey, you need to do, right? And systems which automatically say, oh, this is great, but, and because these kind of agents are recognizing, because if this goes wrong and this goes wrong and that goes wrong, oh, you have a real problem, right? Which a human in isolation may not have seen or recognized it. So there is help, and the people will need to get smarter, and the technology will outperform some of the skill gaps, but the gaps are clearly there. There's no question about that.
Yeah, yeah. And shout out to AI. We love we happen to have an AI agent that provides insights. The one thing we are firm believers in is AI requires clean data and in order to provide that advice. So it's important to have that architectural view and that source of clean data for it to develop its insights, for
Yeah.
sure. Which is a skills gap as well. I mean, it's a new world coming at us. So I think that your insights there were everybody should embrace. Okay, so we've talked about critical important functions. We've talked about some numerous technical challenges and some key things to think about. That leads to some new ways of thinking around reporting and how you're organized. That topic is probably a whole other webinar when we get to it. But let's maybe begin to summarize a little bit, Andreas. If we take a step back and we add up the topics we've just discussed, regardless of the challenges, we're all in it now. I mean, DORA is live. We've celebrated its first anniversary. We should all expect more and more scrutiny as we go. Just looking back over the last year and taking us to where we are today, is there anything that surprised you about I don't know, the regulatory side or the business side? Is there anything? What surprised you most about DORA so far?
You know me, I'm an extremely positive person, right? And
Yeah.
when I looked at DORA, and that's why I said it at the beginning, DORA brings a lot of opportunity. And
Mhm.
what surprises me really is how many companies have embraced DORA as a pure compliance pain and not embraced the opportunity for CIF-centric monitoring, improve incident response, prioritized investment decisions, have board conversations based on critical business values and that kind of stuff. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. And that's what surprised me really most in this first year, that there are companies out there that say, okay, not a compliance requirement, right? The absolute minimum, I do what I have to do and leave me alone, right? A lot of people, I don't know if it's 10%, 30%, I can't really say, but I know quite a few people and companies who see DORA as a complete, pure compliance pain. And I think
Yeah.
that's wrong, or it's just a missed opportunity.
Well, when something is referred to as a regulatory act, there is that knee-jerk reaction to treat it as a compliance effort, and I wholeheartedly agree. This is an opportunity to think differently. I have said this numerous times. I mean, the folks behind things like DORA and other regulations, they aren't evil. They aren't introducing these things because they want to punish people. They're introducing these things because these are the realities of today's business. We should all be concerned about resilience of business, and there is an opportunity here to focus on CIFs and think about resilience and hold ourselves collectively accountable to these things. And it leads to a better place. So if you were in the midst of this, if there are viewers today that of this webinar that are in the midst of it, they've done what is necessary so far, but it is a journey. You used that word earlier. It is a journey. Let's suppose suppose a CISO is on that journey right now. They've done what is minimally necessary so far, and there's work ahead. What's your advice for folks like that?
I think you mentioned the 3 areas of advice already when you were talking or summarizing it before. Number 1 is for sure understand the CIFs and dependencies around it, right? I think
Right.
in the meantime, everyone has a CIF list, right? Some people may still work on ownership, but the end-to-end dependency mapping and the definition, what is good enough, right? But to be live, and what do I need to really to do business with it? That's still work which needs to be done, because I don't think that a lot of people have really gone through it end to end in that first year or the 3 years the people are working on. The second one is, and you mentioned that as well, data, and not information, data-driven CCM, right? Get a platform together which allows you to collect that data seamlessly, which has the capability to look for anomalies, which has the capabilities to put things in relation, who can also take care of timing issues, right? Where say, okay, these data feeds I get in real time, this one only once a month because it's manual. Sure, right? But that's a good CCM platform can handle that, and that's something to focus. It's really data-driven CCM. And the last one is really, the reason why we do this is resiliency. And resiliency requires governance. So, and governance means not just hoping nothing will go wrong, get your playbook scenarios together and test them, right? Have your reporting routines in place, right? That you know exactly what goes around, that the board knows exactly what they get from you, that they know they can call you ownership, and that you are the one who runs the governance, who is continuous, who is on top of it, and it's not just a little bit here, a little bit there. These are the three things: the CIF and dependency model, the data-driven CRM, I would say, and resiliency governance. These are the three areas I would invest in. And dependent on the maturity, right? If you're really good at the data already and you understand all your CIFs already, then it's all about resiliency, and get ready, test, communicate, include also people like the comms guys and your cyber insurance people, because if you need to figure out who has a lawyer in case, or who can negotiate, or who can pay a ransom when you have a problem, it's a little late, right? That's the opportunity to do it now and play through it, learn from it, and have it somewhere written down, and do it again in a year or earlier. And you say, okay, if something happens, you are prepared. That's what makes the muscle memory, or builds the muscle memory, and that makes even an incident, even if it will still be painful and a mess, but it will be an organized mess, and something which will not be catastrophic, because you learned and trained everyone before, saying, okay, what to do if something goes wrong.
I love it. That's sound advice. And I just like to ask you one more question, because there's a human element to your summary there. Do you have any advice? Because we tend, because we're a continuous controls monitoring platform that's frequently sponsored by the CISO, we tend to get a lot of CISOs or executives in the information security department that watch our content. Let's talk about the human element of what you just described and summarized as a final question. Do you think the role of the CISO or the information security executives is changing due to DORA and the I don't want to lead you. I'll just leave it at there.
If a CISO, and doesn't male or female, embraces DORA, it will definitely changes the role from a kind of a project-oriented security lead to an operational executive accountable for resiliency and critical business services, right? If you are not embracing it and you see it as an enemy and you do the minimum, then oops.
There we go. Extend.
Okay, so if you're not embracing it, if you're saying, okay, this is just a pain and I need to get over it, then it, in best case, it hopefully creates transparency that you are outdated, that you will most probably run very soon into trouble, and that someone will knock at the door and do a better job, because the business cares about critical business services, their availability and partner and trust. And if you see such things as a pain, it's hard to trust someone, right? And it's like your car dealer, if you go there and everyone acts at you as you're an idiot only because you don't care how your car works, that's here the same. It's all about trust. It's all about making sure that the things go smooth. And DORA has the opportunity to really change the CISO role. Again, depends, right? For a CISO in a non-DORA regulated environment, these people don't have that pleasure or that opportunity. But for the ones which have, it has the potential. Definitely.
I love it. That you've used this phrase a few times through our talk today. It is an opportunity that can be embraced, and it can help change the role itself. And I think it has the opportunity to elevate the importance of the CISO. The CISO is already very important, but it's a big contributor to that.
I think
so thank you, Andreas.
You can even go further, right? And I say, look, even if you're an industry and you don't fall under the DORA rules, and you want that your job and to become more dominant and more business oriented, just take the DORA handbook, just take the DORA requirements, use it, and talk with the business. Even if you don't have that regulatory pressure, it is a really good framework to become a better risk manager. Then in this case, it's not a compliance requirement, but it's pretty good best practice, and you will become a better, safer, well more organized security organization as a result of it.
Fantastic. Well, Andreas, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights today. It's so powerful to hear from someone who has been responsible as a CISO, who works with numerous companies, advises them, and you come from a place of expertise, which I truly appreciate. So we heard a number of things today. We talked about the orientation of the business towards a business lens that collects controls and findings, et cetera, from various business and provides a business lens on that. That is squarely in the DORA mandate. So that is helpful for everybody. We talked a lot about dependencies. I think that was a great recap that you made there. Is that there's a bit of a technical play here to achieve this DORA-centric view of the business and reporting. There are technical dependencies and business and process dependencies that need to be mapped. We obviously are a company that provides a technical platform. It could be Panaseer, it could be other technical approaches, but there is a technical aspect of this to build this continuous controls monitoring platform to be able to perform in the ways I've just described. And then, embracing this as an opportunity. If you are that CISO and you're being held accountable for DORA, or as you said, or not, there's an opportunity to keep resiliency at the core, resiliency and reporting around that core to your function. Don't look at it as a technical function, look at it as a business function. How are we doing supporting the critical, important functions of our business from a resiliency perspective? And that leads to a better place. It's a great opportunity for all of us. That's I think a great overview. I'll pass it to you for final words, Andreas. Any other words of advice to the audience?
I think you wrapped it up really, really well, because that's what it is. It is an opportunity, and everyone who embraces the opportunity will learn from it, will get better in one way or the other, and as the company or the employer will get a safer place, and that's the best you can get from something like this, right? Sure, it's pain, sure, it's work, sure, no one wants to have this extra work, but if you're really caring about the resiliency capabilities and the ability to really execute under pressure and be prepared, that's a very good framework. And if you invest the time and the money into getting the data, having a centralized CCM system where you have all the controls monitored as close to real time as possible, every single function will benefit, right? And that's the thing, which is that you get one single source of truth, and you will not have endless discussion with auditors anymore, misinterpretation or different interpretation of data. You have one songbook, and we sing this song, and the people may not like the song, and the people may want to have it faster or stuff, but the song is the same. And that would be, or is such a major step forward and a positive thing. You cannot ask for more, really.
Wonderful. Well, thank you once again, Andreas. That's another great session that we've had together. We'll wrap there. Our company is Panaseer. Please do look us up. Andreas provides a lot of advice and advisory services. Please look him up. It's a hot topic we're talking about, and it's not going away. So thank you very much, everybody, and we will talk again soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andreas. Okay, bye-bye.